These events help make this series legendary. Welcome to WatchMojo.com, and today we'll be counting down our picks for the top 10 moments from The Legend of Zelda games. For this list, we'll be primarily concentrating on key story and event moments, as we already have a list for the greatest Zelda boss battles. We're ranking these moments based on the impact on the series, memorability, and of course, our own personal favorites. Number 10, Finding Link's Uncle, The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. A Link to the Past begins, as Zelda games often do, with some backstory, followed by a small adventure leading into a larger one, namely following the perpetual protagonist of the series, Link, as he heads out into a storm to follow his uncle, armed with nothing but a lantern. The player soon catches up with the uncle, finding him wounded in the basement of Zelda's castle. Charging Link with protecting the princess, the unnamed uncle then passes out, but not before uttering a confusing and incomplete final statement. It's generally believed now that he was making a reference to their mutual destiny, yet this dark scene and the uncle's cryptic words remain iconic. Number 9, Discovering Hyrule Castle, The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker. Zelda fans always enjoy seeing connections between the games, even if the specifics of the timelines can get rather confusing, and it doesn't get much better than finding Hyrule frozen in time beneath the waves. Given how bright and colorful Wind Waker is, the contrast with the gray, color-drained world within the depths is a stark one, and the drab palette, along with the statuesque enemies, reinforces the feeling of entering a realm passed over by time. The discovery of Hyrule also acts as a turning point in the game, as Link and the player realize that they've only scratched the surface of the adventure. Number 8, Leaving the Kokiri Forest, The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Departing from home for the first time is difficult for everyone, which makes this early event in Ocarina of Time easy to relate to. The game implies early on that the Kokiri will die if they leave the forest, yet when their guardian, the Great Deku Tree, tells Link to head to Hyrule Castle, you get the sense that something's not quite right. What really hits it home, though, is seeing Link's best friend Saria, who he'll be leaving behind, say goodbye, giving him her ocarina, though not the one from the title, to remember her by. Sometimes it's not the leaving that hits the hardest, but rather the ones we leave behind. Number 7, The Castle Collapsing, The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Upon apparently defeating Ganondorf in a duel, Link and Zelda must fight their way out of the villain's castle as it collapses around them, as enemies assault them, and as a counter ticks off the time remaining before it comes down on their heads. Racing against the clock to escape the building you're in before it's destroyed is something you would be more likely to see in a sci-fi/action game like Metroid, so the fact that it's in a Zelda game is a very cool, if surprising, event indeed. Number 6, Ravio's identity revealed, The Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds. Ravio, the rabbit-hooded cowardly shopkeep, remains an enigma throughout most of A Link Between Worlds. However, after defeating the final boss, just before Hilda makes a desperate move towards Zelda, this rupee-grubbing merchant reveals himself to be a servant of Princess Hilda, Princess Zelda's Lorule counterpart, as well as Link's own doppelganger from Lorule. Given his lack of bravery, Ravio did not feel up to confronting Hilda or Yuga, who was manipulating her on his own, and so he sought out Link instead. Ravio is an interesting take on Link's character, as Link often has to save Zelda from Ganon, but Ravio has to save Hilda from himself. Number 5, Midna's Farewell, The Legend of Zelda: Twilight Princess. Saying goodbye to Midna, the titular Twilight Princess, can be very emotional for some players. Though Fi's departure in Skyward Sword is also quite well done, Midna's definitely came first. While Link had had companions before, Midna distinguished herself from her predecessors with her cheeky personality and intriguing design. The fact that she wasn't a boat or constantly telling us to listen to her also helped quite a bit. What's especially heart-wrenching about this mid-credit scene is the fact that Midna herself destroys the mirror that could have allowed her, or anyone, or anything else, to return from the Twilight Realm, meaning that her goodbye is effectively forever. Number 4, Koholint Island disappears. The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening. Many games have opted for the "it was all just a dream" ending, but the aptly titled Link's Awakening does it better than most, we promise. Upon defeating the game's final boss, Nightmare, Link awakens the Windfish, whose dream of the island of Koholint, where the game takes place, is all a part of. By awakening the Windfish, Link is able to leave the island, but as a result, all of the inhabitants vanish into oblivion. Whoops. Not all is lost, however. If you manage to beat the game without dying, Marin is able to fulfill her wish of becoming a seagull and fly as far as she can. Because living is definitely just as good as being a seagull, right? Number 3, The Final Hours, The Legend of Zelda: Majora's Mask. The moon hanging over Clocktown, along with a 3-day time limit, are constant fixtures of Majora's Mask. So when time starts to run out, the final hours begin. Along with the haunting music, the townspeople all begin contemplating their imminent deaths, with reactions ranging from cowering in a corner to tragic acceptance by two lovers, provided one of the game's more lengthy side quests has already been completed. And while it is satisfying to see disaster averted with the help of the giants, the moon crashing into the earth is one of the most memorable game over sequences ever, as well as a terrifying depiction of the world's end. Number 2, The Death of Ganondorf, The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker. While some may point to Ganondorf's arguably more brutal death in Twilight Princess, at the hands of a fellow villain, as the superior death scene for him, our pick has to go to the incarnation from Wind Waker. While the death itself is similar to other versions, namely getting stabbed in the head, the lead up to it, as well as the atmosphere, is unmatched. As an archetypal villain, Ganondorf can be a bit one note in most Zelda titles. However, Wind Waker does perhaps the best job in fleshing out the antagonist's character, and nowhere is that more evident than in his final scenes. Before we reveal our top pick, here are a few honorable mentions. Number 1, Lifting the Master Sword, The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Despite appearing in nearly every Zelda game since A Link to the Past, our pick for the most significant Master Sword moment, and the best Zelda moment in general, has to go to this one. Lifting the Master Sword marks the turning point from childhood to adulthood in the game's story, literally, transitioning Link and the player to the future, to a time when Ganondorf has already won, a victory only made possible by Link's intrusion into the Temple of Time and by drawing the sword. While the Ocarina of Time may be in the name, it's the Master Sword that this spectacular game really hinges on. Do you agree with our list? What's your favorite moment from the Legend of Zelda series? For more linked top 10s published every day, be sure to subscribe to WatchMojo.com.